Well, it's Tuesday, and as always, we have something to show you.
Yes, this is quite the boy.
Isn't this a neat locomotive?
That is really cool.
This is a famous Bachmann model, and back when Bachmann, the very first large scale that they released was the 460, the 10-wheeler.
Okay.
And it was a battery-operated plastic, flimsy little train set. But it was at a time when a lot of people wanted to get into large-scale railroading and backyard railroading, and people started using that little battery-operated train for that. And we did a show on it called the model train that changed the world, something to that effect.
Like that.
Here's
yeah.
a link to it.
Right.
But that thing went through a whole bunch of iterations and got better and better and better, and it was designed to not run on batteries and to run on track power, and it went through a whole bunch of iterations. They finally did the anniversary version of it. I think it was on the 10-year anniversary of the release of the original battery-operated one, something like that. And they called it the Anniversary Edition. And it had actual valve gear and stuff. So it was a really nice locomotive as these things go.
Right.
And because it was the Anniversary Edition, everybody dubbed it Annie.
Oh, how neat.
And so you'll run into that online. Right. I have an Annie. I'm looking for an Annie.
Oh
whatever. And so much so that even any of the 10-wheelers, whether they're the Anniversary Edition or not, have all been sort of hung with that name Annie. Well, this was, I think, their next large-scale release.
I gotta sneeze. I'm trying so hard.
Speaking of a large-scale release.
There's some dust.
There's some dust.
If I just dive under the table
just
and
to sneeze
down there,
quickly?
It's no strange sound effect, I promise.
Yeah, it's just a sneeze. Okay, moving on. Anyway, I think that this was their next release. Actually, I think come to think of it, the 440 and the Mogul came out next.
Wow.
And then this one. And this was just such an impressive model.
Yeah.
And it's a consolidation, an outside frame consolidation. And because it's a consolidation, it got hung with the nickname Connie.
Oh.
So this is a Connie.
That's a Connie.
The 10-wheeler is an Annie.
An Annie and a Connie.
As far as I know, those are the only
my.
Bachmann engines that got hung with these weird nicknames. But this is based pretty much on a real live Baldwin prototype. Hundreds, if not thousands, of these were built by Baldwin.
I'm just marveling at the detail.
Isn't it incredible?
Even the oilers and everything, the oil cans and...
This one was one of the ones that they did that was just really, really first rate.
Yeah.
When they were doing Spectrum. This was not the first Spectrum. The 440 was the first Spectrum, and then the Mogul. Those two came out almost together. And then I think this was... But it was the first one they did of a more modern engine, which is therefore so big. I mean, you look at the size of this thing because it is done accurately to 120.3 scale.
Yeah.
Which just means good grief, and that also means it's really heavy.
Yes, it sits well.
And I got the deal of the century on this guy. They came out, and I can't remember the whole history just exactly, but they were released, and people were sort of buying them, and a lot of people didn't seem to be that interested, and people were going, oh, I really liked the early engines, and now you're doing a more modern engine, and it's so big, and it won't fit past my structures, and all this kind of talk that was going on. And I went to the train show. It was like the Garden Railroad show at the Queen Mary in Long Beach.
Okay.
And that was when I was living in California. And Hans from Gold Coast Station he was there. I don't think he had a booth. He might have had a booth set up. I don't remember. But Bachmann was there. And boy, were they promoting this engine. And they brought a whole ton of them along to sell. The retail was $800. Oof. Which, compared to LGB was a bargain price, but it was still, by today's standards, that's $1,600, something like that.
Pretty close.
Adjusted for inflation,
Yeah,
close
yeah.
to $2,000 even.
Yeah,
Somewhere
right.
in that proximity.
Pricey.
So it was a little expensive. Well, nobody ever paid that for one. That was so typical of the way Bachmann did business, and to some extent still does business, that they'll come out with a $2,000 retail price tag, and then you feel like you're getting a good deal when you stumble across one for $1,200. When $1,200 is just what they're actually selling it for, and
Right.
they've hung this $2,000 price tag. So this one coming out at $800 meant that you could buy them all day long for like $600.
Oh.
But because it was the Bachmann people, they couldn't undercut their own retail. So at the Long Beach show, they were trying to sell them for $800. I think they sold a grand total of naught
Right, for that price.
at that price. And they brought all of these along. So Hans went to them and said, you really don't want to haul all that stuff back with you, right? And I'll buy them all and put them in my hobby shop, because he moves so much product. And they said, sounds like a pretty good deal to us.
Oh.
We'll just sell you everything we brought, including all the other stuff too. So he bought
Right.
cars, and he bought all this stuff. He paid, are you ready for it? $100.
Oh, for that.
For each, Bachmann sold him these for $100 a piece. And so I go over to Hans and I say, Hans, and he said, I didn't realize I was buying 50 of them. And where am I even going to put them? And I said, well, you can certainly push one my direction at that same price. And he put them on his website, $100. I paid $100 for that.
Wow.
Was that the deal of the century or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
had them on his website, and still
What?
people weren't buying them. I don't know what the malfunction
dear.
was.
I don't either. It's a beautiful engine.
It's a really neat
It
engine.
sort of reminds me of number 40 out to Ely.
It's got some similarities.
Yes, it's some DNA, yeah.
But it's also kind of similar to the C19
Right.
that they did, because it is a consolidation. It's a 280, but notice there's no wheels.
No.
There's no wheels on the ends of the axles. There's
Right.
counterweights.
There's
So it's like
counterweights.
the big Mikados.
Right.
It's an inside frame. I'm sorry, it's an outside frame where the wheels are inside the frame.
Oh,
So
okay.
the frame rails are out here, and then the wheels are inside there, and then all that's on the ends of the axles are counterweights and connecting rods. So what that means is the thing is as wide as a standard gauge locomotive, and those big Mikados and everything are really wide like that, and
Yeah.
because the wheels are in the middle. What that gave Baldwin the advantage of being able to do is that means the wheels between the frames are just there on the axle, and if they want to move them in, if they want to move them out. So they made this in 9 different gauges
Oh, my goodness.
without changing anything other than just moving the wheels in and
wow.
out, right? Because of the outside frame configuration. Now, I don't know what gauges. I know they offered it 9 gauges. It wouldn't surprise me if one of them was all the way down to like a 2 foot or something. But they were probably more like maybe meter gauge for the European market, or 42 inches or 48 inches, or some of these oddball gauges that were around. Probably the vast majority of them were built to 36-inch gauge,
Right.
like this one.
Right.
This one suffers from a problem, and that's the early Bachmann problem that they have. There it is. It's freewheeling. The gear has come loose on that axle. And I kind of assumed it would have. I ran it back in the day, and when I unboxed it, I thought, uh-oh, look, it's freewheeling. I took it out to the railroad. In fairness, it does try to go. The gear is still there on the axle, and it's sort of grabbing a hold of it a little bit, and
So
you
it's
give it a
slipping.
nudge, and it kind of, and then it dies, and the motor's going and the gear's going, and it's just slipping on the axle.
No.
So we now have 3 early Bachmann engines that need new gears.
Yep, sounds like a project.
But I'd really like to get this one.
Oh,
This
I
is one of my
would
favorite
too.
engines, and I used to run it a lot. And it's
Right.
so big.
It's just,
and
it's
heavy,
cool.
and it's neat.
I like it.
Now, it does have another weird feature of some of the Bachmanns, and this is just all of the Bachmanns. They have 2 different coupler heights.
Oh, dear.
The stuff where the couplers are mounted to the body have a high-up coupler. On the ones like this, where the coupler's mounted on the wheel truck so that it
So it's
turns
low.
with the wheel truck. it's down low. This has the low mounted, so it won't match any of our rolling stock, which has the high mounted ones.
Oh dear.
Well, it's pretty easy. I just snip that off and mount one properly to the frame of the locomotive, and I mount it at the high position. But when you're shopping for Bachmann, you have to be aware of the fact that some of their stuff, all of their big hauler stuff, and some of their stuff has the couplers mounted low, and they're mounted to the wheel trucks.
Right.
Some of the stuff has the coupler mounted high, and it's mounted to the frame of the engine, and there's no compatibility between them.
Wow.
And the AMS stuff, if you're running AMS, well, they're not going to mount anything to the wheel truck. That would be amateur and disgusting. So they don't do that.
They don't do it.
So anyway, that's something else that needs to be changed. That's a real simple fix. This, not so much. But as I understand it, having not dove into it yet, when it comes to replacing gears, this is a little easier of a reconfiguration than doing like the 440 and the Mogul, which people are telling me aren't going to be that difficult to do.
Right.
And Northwest Shortline, they're hard to find on their website, but Northwest Shortline does offer all of the replacement gears, and you just press those on the axle, and you're all set
I'd
to
hate
go.
to not have one of them running.
You got to dismantle the whole thing.
But it's a job, you know. Take 2 weeks.
It isn't something that it isn't like take a screw out, replace the part, and put the screw back in.
Nothing is ever that easy, though. Anyway, I mean, even if they say it's easy, it's not.
It's never that easy. Another weird thing that this guy has, in the day that this was made, was before they had at least they were commonly available, the DCC boards with the sound on them. So they had DCC as a little board, and then they had a sound board. This is set up so that the sound system mounts in the tender, and the DCC mounts in the smoke box as 2 separate units. So if you want to just get like a all-in-one sound and DCC encoder and put it in here, then you're going to have to rewire all of your lights and everything and put in new connectors here, because the little connector here doesn't have that many connections on it. So anyway, or you could go old school, and behind the front of the locomotive here, this comes open, and there's plugs and switches and everything, and you can put a little small DCC decoder in there.
Whichever's easiest.
A complete standalone sound system back here.
Yeah, just whichever's
easiest. That's the old way of doing it.
Right.
Anyway, there's a whole bunch of ups and downs on this engine. The upside is, oh man, is it neat.
I think it's just really cool.
Yeah,
I could look at that all day. It's neat.
They're hard to find.
Right.
Because they were out quite a while ago, and a lot of people spun the gears, and I don't know what. But you don't see them around much.
Not much.
And then because they had to sell off a lot of their inventory to Hans for $100 a piece, I don't know if they were all that excited about doing another run on them. So I don't think they ever did. I think it was
that was it. That was the 100 right there.
The paint job here, Silverton Northern 34, was an actual one of these.
Oh, okay.
And so it's actually based on a prototype. The Silverton Northern, one of my favorite railroads, did have engine 34. It was one of these outside frame consolidations, very similar to this, except that Bachmann again did a really weird thing. And that's that they gave it Baker valve gear.
Oh, really?
I mean, you look at this and it's like, what is that, like a Swiss watch?
That's nice.
It's got more little moving parts and bell cranks, and why did they do that? And I ran into the guy from Bachmann at a train show, and I said, I don't know that any of those things ever had a Baker valve gear, and certainly Silverton Northern 34 didn't have a Baker valve gear. Why did you do that? And he said, because Baker valve gears are really neat. There's all these little things, and they go around and in it, and it's like, but it ain't right. He says, but it's really neat because all the little pieces.
No, there you go.
Well, in fairness, I love it. I love it because it's got all the little pieces, and they go around and in and out and back.
You get your money's worth.
So no, it isn't right. But how often do you see a Baker valve gear?
Well, there's one there.
And there's one there. So I'm not going to retrofit it
No,
with a
leave it.
Stevenson valve gear or something. I'll just keep the Baker valve gear.
Yeah.
And be amazed at the fact
Runs better.
that it has that.
Oh, it's
on
just
there.
cool. You can watch it go
Looks
by.
like something Omega watches would have.
Yeah, it's really neat.
And when it's actually running for real, just watching all the
that's
little
really
bits
awesome.
and pieces and slides moving in and out and everything. Anyway,
There
there
it
it is. The Connie.
Yes,
The Connie.
That's really neat.
For all it's worth.
that's neat.
Well, if you haven't been over the channel, pop over to the channel. And if you're not a subscriber, here comes the blue button. Zoink! The blue button. There we go. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you on Sunday.
Yeah.
With some foolishness or the other. See you
We'll
then.
see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.